Well, thanks everybody for joining me for this next episode of a new series, Community Matters. And the title really says it in it all. Community does matter. And there's lots to talk about in our community. And the next part of our episode, not an unfamiliar face to me, Brooke Daye. Thanks for joining me today, Brooke.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
You're welcome. You're a busy guy, I know, and you and I've had some great conversations. But this one here that we're going to talk about, there's a housing issue in a lot of communities, but this is really being tackled around here, and it's a conversation, honestly, that comes up. I just had lunch earlier today, Brooke, and I was having a conversation with my friend, and he brought up cost of living and all this stuff, and what about the future for our children? There's just a big conversation, but this is Aspect Housing Initiative. Talk about what that means.
Yeah, great. So thanks a lot for giving us the opportunity to explain who we are today and what it is that we do. You're right. Due to the fact that rising costs of living, whether it's at the grocery store or at the pump, and right, as well as our real estate prices, are really putting pressure on families, individuals, senior citizens. And I think that at this point here in our city, we are seeing people talk making housing and housing affordable, living spaces, dwelling as a very top priority issue. So this is something that I had discovered since returning home to the city. And when evaluating what it is that I could do and how I could make an impact in my hometown with the skill sets that I was able to acquire over the years, I chose housing as one of the key pillars, helping people who need the help, who are not deserving, but more of who are out there trying to help themselves, put their own selves together and build themselves up, and how we can get together and impact those individuals. And it culminated in myself meeting some people who thought the same, most specifically Sabrina Conlon and Brenda McLaughlin. We initiated the Aspect Housing Initiative. So basically the Aspect Housing Initiative, we have a mandate to assist families, working families who are at the sort of the water's edge, I call it, for falling underneath the water of not being able to afford the monthly bills. You know, one bad break away from real true emergency and crisis in their lives. We're trying to help those who are trying to help themselves. So we look at folks that are out there who are working, having two jobs, maybe some kids in the house, and they're doing all they can to keep up with a macro economy, Dave, that seems to have forgotten them, that they don't have control of. You know, they don't have control of those decisions. Sometimes macro makes you eat a cake you might not want to eat, and we're trying to make sure that we assist those folks.
There's too much month at the end of the money, I guess, right? You know, and that's when did you first recognize yourself, like, because you'd been away for a while, you know, and when did you first recognize when you came back that this was a problem?
Pretty immediately. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take long for you to reconnect with old friends in the city of Sarnia. We're all pretty much interrelated, so to speak. We have 6 degrees of separation. It's very near here in Sarnia. So it was very quick. I learned that cost of living is a real problem. And also to, you know, from my background and what I do professionally, I'm well aware of the trends in finance, in the economy, at both the macro and micro level. But also too, you know, obviously the second thing being substance abuse and mental health here, and how they all play a factor. So from there, the circles sort of intertwine with one another. That Venn diagram, there's a lot of crossover between the two. And when you're out there and you care, like myself and my compatriots, you start to, and if you're as active as we are, you sort of meet all the stakeholders and you get the full download rather quickly.
Yeah. It's there's so many factors that are involved in this, right? You know, and like, how do you see, I don't want to use the word control, but I guess there has to be some kind of takeover in a sense, is there, of bringing the costs down? Or like typically I'm looking at this and I'm not fully educated on it yet. That's why we're talking, but like prices typically go up, they don't go down, don't they?
Well, they do and they don't. Over time, asset classes generally increase when the money supply increases. That's what we've seen. The money supply since basically 2008, and going back to since the Canadian dollar was depegged from the gold standard, and even the creation of Bank of Canada, if you want to even include that, whenever you create more of something, it becomes devalued. So it's not like the assets themselves, Dave, are going up in value. It's more like the currency that purchases it has less value.
Yeah.
And that's the way we look at it. Now, that's part of the problem here, is that that's fine. Inflation is part of a healthy economy. That's why economists like to target 2% inflation. You want growth. But the problem is wages and opportunities haven't grown along with that. And when you have year after year of that separation between the two and a negative separation, you have the real problems that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah.
So you asked me, do we have to take action? Yes, this is where I think most of the stakeholders within the community have decided that something needs to be done, whether for good or bad, at a public level. And that's where my group has sort of stepped in and provided them with an option that might not alienate that decision with more of the free market private enterprise crowd. It's sort of a three-way partnership that gets all stakeholders working together.
And I know there's some ideas and visionary solutions, I guess we'll call them, in the conversation coming here. But you mentioned like 2008, like this has been something that's been coming for a while.
Yes.
Why didn't we catch this sooner, or did we try?
Did we try? Yes. Is it part of the plan for some? Yes. Monetary theory. A quick monetary lesson here. Yep. There's different schools of economy out there, right? There's the Keynesians versus the Chicago School of Economics. Then there's this new thing that's been sort of thought up as a theory recently called modern monetary theory. And that's where deficits don't matter. You can print as much money as you like. You just tax to soak up the excess capital or excess dollars in the economy. Yeah. We tried that with the pandemic. We released more money supply in 2 years in Canada than we ever did in our history combined. Yeah. It was catastrophic in what it did for asset prices. I mean, that money's got to go somewhere, Dave.
Right.
And it landed in homes, it landed in cars, it landed in gold bars, it landed in coffee commodities, it landed in all kinds of things that made prices go up. So that's part of what's happened. And we have tried to fight it, but at times we've had events like the financial crisis, like the pandemic, that our elected officials did not want us to suffer through. And we ourselves called for help. No one stood on the breach and said, well, listen, if we do this deal and we give you all this money, it's going to result in this. No one was interested in that discussion then, like all the time with democratic politics. So we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. And that macro problem, I'd like to be part of that discussion. But on a micro level, I can at least help the folks here who are generally compassionate about people and their circumstances, provide a solution that is not only scalable, but it's a clean structure that gets all stakeholders together. And that's what I think we're doing.
Well, because it's not just about what's happening right now. It's like what's coming next with it. Like, I have a son, he's 22 years old. We did the math the other day and he wasn't happy about it. No. Minimum wage just went up again, I think last week, and I don't know, it's $16.50 or something like that now. And that's still not enough, barely. Like I did a little research looking for a 1-bedroom apartment the other day and I was like, wow, unbelievable. Yeah. Never mind the cost and you haven't eaten yet. Right. So
it's really truly, it's a lot of money, David. It's a lot of money for a smaller city. I don't like to call Sarnia a town. We're not a town. We're a city. We're a smaller city, medium-sized city. And for the prices that we see and the job opportunities that are out there in our city, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect with that. Yeah. And we're trying to address that. And I think everyone is. The good news is that the people who are in charge are motivated right now. I see motivation across the board. There's a lot of let's do something, let's do something. And I think now is the time for us to come in with a great idea and be able to assist them with that. But you're right, Dave. Things have been difficult, since the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Okay,
back
well,
in 2018 and 2019 and 2017, those were boom times.
right.
People
Right.
were doing really well.
Yeah, I remember those times. And it's not long ago, really. Okay, well, let's move forward now. So what Aspect Housing Initiative, you've got some ideas, you got some solutions possibly. Take us to the next step here with the group.
Right. So Aspect Housing Initiative, I already earlier identified the type of folks we're trying to benefit. We're trying to benefit or help and assist working families who are genuinely trying as hard as they can to stay, keep that neckline with the water, right? So we want to put a floor underneath them, so to speak, so that they don't suffer anything catastrophic that leads to family breakup, family tragedy, more people who are living rough on the streets. So we're trying to put a floor under that. That's what we've identified as our group. The way we do that is by working with both the private sector and the public sector on what is called a municipal service corporation. So the city of Sarnia has the legal authority to initiate a municipal service corporation with intent to be involved in any type of capital project. So, if they wanted to build a road, if they wanted to build a bridge, and they needed to raise money, and they wanted to be separate from the operations of the city, they could create a municipal service corporation, or in some terms, people call them economic development corporations. So the city is able to do such, at which time, when they create the municipal service corporation, they are allowed to enter into multiple types of arrangements with investors, whether it's debt related through bonds or loans, or they could sell equity shares or in positions in the company. What we envision is a situation where the city initiates the municipal service corporation, gains the approval and the trust of the community, move forward with it, and allow the private sector to come in and then purchase what would be a municipal service, short-term municipal bond. These are very popular. They're safe. They're investment-grade opportunities. People will be able to purchase these knowing that the government is on the other side of the issuing. So there's support there, there's stability. And the private sector would be able to then fund the project through the purchasing of the bond, at which time, after 10 years, they would be able to redeem those bonds for their face value and exit, giving the city full 100% ownership of the development and all of the beautiful repercussions that entail from doing a transaction like this.
So in layman's terms, this is like pooling money together?
Pulling in layman's terms, it's the government being the company, the legal entity, and the private sector providing the money.
Right.
See, the big disconnect, well, it's not the big disconnect no more, but what I noticed almost immediately was the private sector is not going to fund these types of arrangements and water down their profits.
Right.
That's not what the private sector does well. The private sector innovates and creates because they're driven by profit motive. When you take profit motive away from them, they are not themselves no more. So government, we've seen, has to step in these moments and sort of fill that void. But there's an appetite too, specifically in real estate, for the government to sort of stay out of it. Because if the government goes into it, then the community itself, the private community, feels that it's an unfair advantage by the government, right? The government's coming in with all of its money and all of its tools and all of its power, and they're taking away our industry. That's fine. So what you do is you work together, you allow that private industry, private investment group to purchase and fund projects like this. And then the government itself is the legal entity that assumes operational responsibility and the legal liability that comes with owning it.
Is that a hard sell still? Like, and I'm not to be negative on what you're trying to do, but there's that word government in there. There's a trust factor there, right? Well,
I can tell you this. I think everyone's looking at the government at this point to solve the problem, right? Whether it's through grants, like, there's sort of a loose network of grants here in our community, whether they're at the provincial level or local level, there's grants. And they've already been sort of subsidizing builds of condominiums and developments and houses. But it's not enough, because these people who are accessing these grants are private entities that are accessing these grants, and they're still not able to deliver projects at scale and at affordability.
Yeah.
So we've tried. So we have to say, okay, we have to need to be a little bit more involved. And so that we don't spook the private community, it's best to work with them and offer them to fund the project, which the private community has plenty of money. $15 million, $20 million building projects where they can make 3 to 4% on an annual coupon rate. I mean, the money's out there for that. Mutual funds, insurance funds. There's plenty of money out there that would snap up those short-term municipal bonds from a municipal service corporation here in Sarnia, Lambton very quickly. They would probably be sold in 24 hours.
Wow. Well, it sounds really positive. So moving forward with all this, you're looking for some public feedback, and you've put together a public survey.
Yeah. So part of the process for us, for any initiation of a municipal service corporation, is a few things. One, you need to do a presentation at council. Council has to sort of confer with a feasibility study. Is it possible legally, intergovernmentally, jurisdictionally, is it possible? But the most important one is you have to consult the community, whether through a survey, a poll, a town hall, and we plan on doing all of them for our efforts. But this is the first salvo in getting the opinion of the city, just so that we can advise the people that we speak to at council. Obviously, I'm in contact with primarily all of the majority of them, and they're all open-minded about the project, but they're going to want to know what the community thinks. So we're doing this little bit of work to find out what the community thinks, so that we can then advise them clearly on what sentiment is. Yeah, fantastic. I can go in there all day and talk, okay, look, we're going to be able to return the bonds in 10 years, and this is what the investment looks like. Who's going to underwrite it? And here's what's going to happen after 10 years when the city owns the building and the property free and clear, and the city has a beautiful asset that's going to earn the money and all these cash flows. And it's, real great, Brooke, but what does everyone else think? It's going to always be the answer. So this is otherwise it's just your opinion, right? Yeah. And it's really, this survey, surveys are popular, but this is really quick. It was, if it took me 2 minutes, really, like I don't think it did take me that long. So, and then, okay, so you collect all of this stuff, and then this is going to fall into the mailboxes of who? So city council and the mayor. So we'll get this information, and then we'll get it to the key stakeholders at the bureaucratic level, right. Heads of departments, as well as other organizations and community organizations. There's quite a few. We'll get it to places like Salvation Army, the Inn of the Good Shepherd, River City Vineyard. We want to provide as much real-time information on sentiment for projects like this, because I've seen where there's a lot going on. And one of the things I keep saying to my colleagues in these groups is it's going to come down to a public relations campaign, right? A marketing campaign. And it's not about lying or misleading, but informing. Part of the biggest issue for this, or the biggest hurdle for this, will be to make sure everyone has good information so that they can formulate an opinion. Yeah, very good. Brooke, thanks so much for your time on this today. It's very interesting, and I kudos to you and your team, because I'll just put out there, you're just a private citizen like everybody else, and you're just out there doing the work anyway, because you recognize someone as part of a community that you want to help. And I think that's so a lot of times we look at the government and go, well, what are you going to do about it? And this is a really great example of you and others that you're putting your heads together with and aligning yourself with, that are saying this is our community and we need to take action on our own, and then present it through the process. So congratulations to you on that. Before I wrap up, any final thoughts? Well, just to piggyback off of that, Dave, look, all stakeholders are they're pot committed. So the elected officials, the bureaucracy, the organizations, everyone's trying to figure it out. I think the biggest issue is going to be is how. And so far, what we've appreciated is that our structure for creating the municipal service corporations and issuing bonds has been well received. It's been well received from the private community. There's investors out there who have said to me, Brooke, those are great investment vehicles. I'd be more than interested in those. And then on the inside, I've heard more and more, and I had great meetings this week where I'm starting to hear, well, Brooke, this bond idea, tell me more. How can you do this? How do you see this working out? What's this? And we're starting to explore more of the finer points now. So the momentum's there, and it's very good. So thanks a lot for having us today, Dave, so that I could be out here and explain this to the community. We'll be trying as hard as we can to make sure everyone has good information.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have you back again when there's a more significant update as well, and we'll keep spreading the word here for you. Brooke Daye, everybody, once again, a part of Aspect Housing Initiative. We've got a link in the description of this video, so you can click and take the survey. It doesn't take really long at all, and you get to have your say. Thanks again, Brooke.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good day. Bye-bye.